Shadowed Battlegrounds presents The Day the War Paused. In the chaos of the Gallipoli Peninsula, where the earth was stained with soldiers' blood and the air was thick with smoke and despair, two soldiers from opposing sides found an unexpected connection. This is the story of the day. The sun rose sluggishly over the jagged landscape of Gallipoli, casting long shadows over the trenches where weary soldiers huddled. Among them was Private Jack Thompson, an Australian soldier with dirt-streaked cheeks and tired eyes. His uniform was ragged, but his spirit remained unbroken. Across the no-man's land, hidden in the trenches of the Ottoman Empire, was Sergeant Ali Korkmaz, a Turkish soldier with a fierce determination in his heart. Both men had seen the horrors of war, and both longed for a moment of peace. As the morning fog began to lift, an unusual silence fell over the battlefield. Whispers spread among the troops. An informal truce, a daily ceasefire to bury the dead and tend to the wounded. Jack peered over the edge of his trench, his heart pounding. He saw Turkish soldiers cautiously emerging from their positions, waving white flags. With a deep breath, he climbed out of the trench and began to walk towards the middle of the no-man's land, carrying his own makeshift flag of truce. Ali did the same, and the two soldiers met in the middle, amidst the barbed wire and craters. They eyed each other warily at first, but the shared humanity in their eyes soon broke the tension. "Merhaba," Ali greeted, his voice tentative but friendly. "G'day," Jack replied with a nod, extending his hand. They shook hands, a gesture that felt surreal given the circumstances. As the hours passed, more soldiers joined them in the no-man's land. Someone produced a soccer ball, and soon an impromptu game began. Jack and Ali found themselves on opposing teams once more. But this time, the competition was lighthearted and filled with laughter. The game was rough and tumble, but there were no injuries, just a lot of good-natured teasing and camaraderie. For a few precious hours, the war was forgotten. Instead, there was only the sound of the ball being kicked, the cheers and the joy of shared humanity. After the game, the soldiers sat together in small groups, sharing what little food and drink they had. Jack pulled out a small tin of biscuits and offered some to Ali, who in return shared a piece of flatbread and a handful of dried figs. They sat side by side, eating in companionable silence, occasionally exchanging smiles and nods. Despite the language barrier, they communicated through gestures and the universal language of friendship. As the sun began to set, the reality of their situation started to creep back in. The officers from both sides began to call their men back to their trenches, knowing that the truce was temporary. Jack stood up and looked at Ali. "I hope we meet again, my friend, in better circumstances." Ali nodded, understanding the sentiment. "Inshallah," he replied, his eyes reflecting the same hope. They shook hands once more before turning and walking back to their respective sides. The ceasefire had been brief, but it left a lasting impact on both men. As Jack settled back into his trench, he glanced back across the no-man's land, feeling a sense of connection to the man he had shared a meal and a game with. That night, as the sounds of war resumed, Jack lay in his trench, thinking about the day. He knew that tomorrow would bring more fighting, more bloodshed, but he also knew that somewhere out there, on the other side, was a friend who, like him, longed for peace. In the darkness, amid the roar of artillery and the rattle of machine guns, Jack held on to the memory of that day. It was a small flicker of hope in a world engulfed by war. If you like this story and want to see more, click on the icon top left. If you want to help support our channel, please hit the subscribe button on the top left. If you have a good history idea, let us know in the comments. Thank you.